think always with an audition, it's not always, and that's why it's so great coming into the room, I think, even more so than Zoom auditions, is because you come into the room, you meet someone. If you're not right for that role, you've met that person, you can gauge, how their talent or their sensibilities and all these things, and in the future there will be something they are right for. And yeah, so you're always auditioning, not just for the one role you're coming in for, but you're auditioning for all the roles in a way in the future as well.
All right, so today I'm joined by Casting Director Clare Harlow. Like I said, Clare, that's the most formal thing I'm going to do all day. Welcome to the show. Thank you for joining me. And how are you?
Thank you so much for having me. I'm good. It's been a tricky time, but I'm very well and happy to be chatting on your show.
Thank you for joining me. Yeah, I could tell when you said I'm good, when the decibel changed a little bit. I'm like, that's not fully true. Anyone who says I'm good is more like I'm okay. I'm all right.
It's funny, isn't it? It's the kind of thing I would say to someone if this setup was an audition and I was like, okay, this person is having to put on a happy face, but things have been a bit tricky, or maybe work on your vocal tone, and actually that's because in real life we do that too. But I think it's important as well, in this time and doing something like this, to be very honest. There's no point, and
everyone knows we're all going through it, so
ups and downs, and it's life, isn't it?
It's also one of the nice things in some ways to sort of see that formal, for lack of a better term, side not always there. And I know we're talking to it briefly just before we hit record here, but I think one of the big, I don't want to call it a revelation because it's not, but the nice things is the casting community across the board here, the States, everywhere, has been so open in sharing insights and advice over the last year with everybody. But moreover than that, I think letting us just know what we already knew, but see that you're all human too, and that makes a big level playing field, I think, when we get back to normality.
Yeah, I mean, I also, that premise of the fact that we're, there's the casting director and then there's the actor, is just like, I feel so old school and that's just no longer should be a thing at all. This kind of ego hierarchical status is, I feel like everyone says this now, but obviously we want actors to be good. We want, them to give us the best performances, and we want to work with them so they achieve that, so that we can show our director, look what we've got for you, Plus, I don't know, I just don't think it's right these days, especially after this year, to pretend, I don't know, no one's no matter what your job title, everyone's, got a family, got a, or you got their own stuff going on, and it's, I don't know, I think a little, unnecessary for that status to be a thing. I mean, I get it, and always there's, if you're casting directors, essentially are helping people get jobs, so obviously there's going to be a slight imbalance there, but I think it's important to be sort of open about being on, we're all playing for the same team.
Sure. And the thing is, you're not the only ones that are making those decisions, right? So
no, not at all. In fact, that's always a common misconception. I think that you often read stuff like, oh, the casting was terrible, and sometimes it's like, yeah, it kind of was, but we didn't necessarily want those people. We hoped the producers or the studio would pick these guys, and so
there's my little bit of my brain going, should you pick on that thread and get Clara to tell us who she wanted to cast when she didn't get to? No, I'm not. I'm kidding. I wouldn't do that.
I think before we started this, I was like, I had to give myself a little talking to, because I can be probably too open, and reminding myself that I mustn't just, I sometimes in workshops, I think I just say stuff and people are like, oh, wow, and I have to forget that actually
it's fine. We pre-record this so we can edit stuff out later. It's all good. You spoke then about being good, and I'm curious about what that might look like from your side when an actor is good. How does that translate for you? And I'm cutting out here, or you are, so I hope you heard what I just
You
said.
just cut out for a bit, but now you're fine again.
That's fine. I'll repeat that, but I won't edit this out. I was just saying, you mentioned about you want good actors, right? Which is a very subjective kind of thing, but I'd be keen to get your view on how you unpackage that. What does that look like? And is it something that's always variable? Is it beyond just technique? I think is maybe where I'm trying to lean into with this in terms of just a strong, screen performance, or is there something more intangible to it?
I mean, I think me saying I want good actors is obviously a very huge, statement. There's obviously you want good actors, but there's so many things you want, and it depends on the character, it depends on the parts. Sometimes it's been the case that you'll, depending on the size of the role, you'll want obviously someone who can act, but you'll want a specific look that fits well, or something different, or a breath of fresh air, or not someone who's technically good, someone who's like raw and actually someone who hasn't been trained, maybe. I think it's because in a sense, acting, the best actors aren't acting, so I think, but it varies hugely, obviously. So that was when I say you want good actors, it's like, well, of course you want talent, but it's gonna vary every time. So that was a broad sort of sweeping statement to make, but
Sure. That's kind of statements to make, to be fair. I think it was more of a leading question, that one for me anyway. So that's probably one for me to slap myself on the wrist about, because what I was trying to get to a little bit more is at what point do you feel technique or talent is no longer necessarily one of the key things? Because at a certain level, every actor that you're going to see has talent. And so it becomes more than just that. And I guess I'm thinking more along the lines of, at one point, is it more mindset of the actor, the way that they handle themselves, how they come across as a human being, and their life experiences translating through the work, as opposed to just having like pristine screen acting technique and great talent?
Again, it's interesting. Again, I think it very much depends on the role that you're looking for. Obviously there are smaller roles where you want someone fresh, or younger roles. You've frozen again. I'm worried.
I'm back.
Did I freeze again?
It's okay. I think we're back. One of us is back. You're back. I'm back.
Okay. Maybe it's. So I think, again, it really varies on the role and what you're looking for. There are certain. I think technique is important and experience can be important for certain parts, but it just completely depends on what you're searching for. Obviously, if I'm looking for, a 13-year-old girl for a new TV drama, technique, that'll be learned. And sometimes younger actors, I have found, not always, of course, but sometimes when they're really trained at a young age, it doesn't necessarily pay off, someone who's kind of just talented, very obviously talented and raw can be easier to work with, I think. But again, if I was looking for a sort of 60-year-old male who's playing, a corrupt world leader or something, I'm likely going to be hitting the top guns of talent to see who's available. And because sometimes I think that experience, and by that age, there are people who very obviously have done well for a reason. But I think the main kind of casting pool that I would look at for stuff, and particularly the years that I've been casting, and especially all the years I had with Kate when we were working on pilots particularly, and I auditioned a lot of young people from teenagers to 20s, 30s, I guess. I spent, and I really know that pool, especially of UK talent, very well. And it's an annoying thing to say, but some people have a very natural ability. And, technically, it's not obvious that there's any technique there, if that makes sense. it's
Mhm.
just effortless and it's just natural and free flowing. And whereas I think sometimes actors can get a bit in their heads, and quite often, you know, when I'm in an audition, I'll often be like, okay, let's do it again. You've got to literally shake it off, you know, shake off the part, shake off all the stuff, all the things that you think, because it's obvious. I can see them, the like premeditated like thoughts or actions or looks, and it's not natural. I think what happens though through an actor's sort of audition technique and then, you know, learning the script, learning what they're going to do, is you go through certain motions which makes complete sense, but once you get to the audition, you've got to make sure by that point you've like let it all go. And lines can trip off the tongue, you know, often things can feel a little theatrical, I think, and look a bit too technical. So if that answers your question, it's sort of, I would say, you don't want to be the actor who looks like they've got all the technicalities there. You want to be the actor who's not acting.
Yeah, and it's that kind of slightly frustrating for anyone that might listen to it, because it's counterintuitive and you kind of have to get the experience a little bit of going through those kinds of auditions, and sometimes maybe coming across a bit too theatrical or learning the ropes long enough to be able to give those performances naturally. I think the technique comes with the experience just as much as anything else. Have I dropped out again?
Yeah, you have. Do you want me to see? Because if you do these often, and I'm not where I usually would be. So, as in, I'm not in my
Normally
flat.
it's normally it's pretty okay, to be fair. Normally it's pretty. I wasn't sure if you'd cut out or you were just really still.
No, let me. You're cutting out for me. Shall I cancel this and go somewhere else in the house and see if it's better? Because I think it could be that case. Hey, sorry, I've just done something with the internet, so hopefully that's better. I don't actually it shouldn't matter where I am, to be honest. So anyway.
This is the world we're living. We're back for now. I'll figure it out. We'll make do. Yeah, I mean, I was thinking as you were gone there, like this is a new thing now with the whole audition space and Zoom auditions and all the clunkiness. Have you done much of it? And what's your hot take on the whole process?
I have, and you know, it's an odd thing because at the beginning of the year, well, to be honest, this time last year, everything obviously stopped. So, but in the summer, I was working on something and had a lot of self-tapes, which is kind of normal, although personally I'd always prefer to get people in the room, even first stage, but obviously that, you know, but you know, say out of like 30 auditions, self-tapes that I'd asked for, and I maybe got 10 people to meet on Zoom and would then give them notes and work with them, initially found it really tricky because you can't get an essence of someone as well as in the room. But funnily enough, now it's you get used to it, and it's sort of, you can work with it, and actually it is fine. And we're so, God, aren't we lucky that we have
something?
Yeah, all of this stuff. I don't know what, you know, what we would do without
all of it. Are you when you're getting people on Zoom, are they doing the audition direct to like their webcam, or are they doing it on their own phone or DSLR and you're redirecting them and then they're just filming it like a self-tape? What's your approach?
No, I would usually redirect them and then they would then go and do
the self-tape
again. It's just easier. Also, I feel like the benefits for actors maybe of this time is that pressure that usually in the room when I'm like, no, let's do it like this sounds too angry, this sounds too, you know, they then have time to like take those notes, go and work on it, and then self-tape again, you know, even if it's literally an hour later. I think it's just easier, and I don't know, I'm not technically so savvy, so right. I guess it's easier for me as well. Let me just turn the light on.
Sure. There you go. I thought it was turning into a crime watch reconstruction video.
It suddenly got so dark. This room is usually really light, so when I sat down, even at like 5 to 6, it was pretty light. But...
To be fair though, I'll take it at 6 p.m. if it's still light outside. I'll deal on that.
Yeah. It's been beautiful down here today as well, so it feels like spring is here.
Just don't jinx it. You can't say that, and then it's going to rain tomorrow now, probably. Just cats and dogs.
Probably.
So you said there about back in the room. Do you feel like that's likely to happen for first stages? Do you think that's a way off? What's the...
I mean, I know that over the summer it did happen a bit for sure, and like director sessions and things like that. You've got to adapt, and directors need to meet their actors really. And obviously, I think obviously this year that's been too tricky, but definitely over sort of, when was it, like June, July, August, September, October, when it was sort of okay, there were ways of, maybe getting a COVID test the day before. And, I think, I mean, it's always, it's the ideal, I think, for a casting director. I'm always surprised when casting directors in the past have always used just self-tapes for their auditions, because I don't, that's sort of one of the main points of our job, that we would be able to work with an actor to help with their audition tapes. But it's not really part of the it's part of the process that I love the most, is meeting actors and being in the room with them. But for the necessity, and obviously during this time, it's really the most important thing, I think, that the director meets them in the room. So I think if you can get to the stage where you've whittled down like 4 people for a role, then you can make it, you could have made it work at points over the year when it's been safe for them to meet in the room, and left gaps. Usually we'd have director sessions and it would be easy and you don't think twice, whereas now it would be a case of you'd leave like half an hour between each actor.
Sure.
And I wouldn't sit in the room necessarily, it would be just between the director and actor.
Do you think that there's going to be that shift then from the casting side for what your role, not what it entails, but how much of that in-person involvement might be there in the future? I mean, hopefully there will be a fair amount, but do you think it's going to be less than what it ever was?
No, I don't think so. I don't, no, I don't think so. I mean, once this is blown over, that it's not as an effective process, I would say. I think what's maybe slightly sad is this, you can obviously achieve casting without meeting the actors in person, and it's certainly easier for the actors probably not to, but I think it just depends maybe on a particular casting director's process. And and I definitely think it's far more beneficial for the actor to come in the room always. You can't get a sense of someone, there's been times where I've had auditions with actors and who I know very well, and they'll come in and be a bit off and it's not quite right, and everyone has bad days, everyone has stuff that's going on personally, so you can be a bit more sensitive to how someone is and how you can gauge a bit more.
Sure.
Yeah. Personally, I think it would be very sad if things don't go back to how they were before. And for me, if I was casting something, once we can, I would definitely, there's no way I would want to work like this forever.
Yeah. I mean, does it give you some benefits, at least for some things, say on the smaller roles where you could cast the net a bit wider, maybe bring in a few more people?
Oh, for sure. I mean, definitely. And I think it has highlighted that you can cast like this. So technically I could be somewhere else in the world and still manage to cast, a movie and I think there is definitely scope for the fact that you do see more people. I can spread the net further and send out more auditions to actors if I'm not seeing them all. But to be honest, we sort of knew that already. And there are definitely, when we've worked on smaller roles in the past, you can spread the net further because you don't have only sort of 12 audition slots in a day. But to be honest, I've worked on a lot of stuff in the past when I was working for Kate, particularly a lot of sort of foreign things, and well, not foreign, sorry, the main thing I'm thinking of was actually we worked on a big series for Amazon called Treadstone. Yeah. And that the casting for that, a lot of the actors were, Russian or speaking. French. Yeah, exactly. And or French speaking, German speaking. So we're doing a lot of self tapes anyway and working on that premise. So I don't think it's a shock for anyone to have to adapt to this way, but yeah.
It's not the same as in the room and being able to play and create with the actor then and there, because you're involved in the process creatively more, but also I guess it gives you a read as to how they take direction, which is a big part of what you're looking for as well. So a lot of that's going to get lost.
At a very, very good point as well. If you don't know, I think especially there are certain demographics of actors that it's harder, if you're auditioning, which I haven't done, but if you're searching for a child or even a teen or someone who's had no experience, it's far harder, because especially with young actors, because you really need to work with them, you need to workshop with them, you need to sort of play around with them a little bit, and you obviously can't do that effectively in this situation with like school kids or people who are unknown. It's
Sure.
trickier.
Absolutely. Especially when you've got kids and you know that they have a limited amount of time that they can be on set for legal reasons. So if they can't take the adjustments pretty quickly and your 4 to 8 hours disappear on set, the director's probably going to be pulling their hair out over that one.
Yeah, very true.
On the smaller roles, the co-stars, the one-liners, the two-liners, I don't care where we're auditioning them let's say in person. They're always, in some ways, the slightly trickier ones for people to come in and do, because whilst they move the story along, they don't give you a whole lot to play with.
Mm.
How do you like to approach that with actors when working on those roles with them and trying to get what you need out of them? And, how can you give maybe some advice to actors on how they could approach those? Because sometimes those are the ones that drive us crazy compared to the 3-page piece of dialogue. I
think the smaller roles are the hardest, to be honest. You don't have much to work with, but yet you want to put your, as an actor, you want to make your audition count. You want to put your stamp on it, which actually I think leads me on to like the note I would give, which is sort of less is more, and almost it is as simple as it seems on the page, and it should be sort of very throwaway. I remember once this was ages ago, I was auditioning people for a role in Me Before You, and it was a small role, and it was a barman, I think. And I got like, I don't know, 10 guys and girls in, and one guy, and it was a very simple, like, what would you like to drink? Here's your pint or something. And this one guy was like really just angry and like did it quite aggressively and sort of a bit begrudgingly, and so I did the take, and then I was like, oh, that was a little kind of aggressive. I like, where did that come from? And he was like, well, I just felt, he's been having a really hard day, he's obviously been working long hours, he's going to be annoyed that this woman's now coming in late at night. I was like, whoa. He'd made this whole backstory, which I understand, and I understand why you would want to do that, to give the character, fill the character out. But actually, it's so simple. You almost want, you need to be able to throw these characters away and throw the lines away. And I know it's hard because you almost want to give a bit more, but less is more always, I think. And sometimes, look at the text carefully. There sometimes can be the odd quirk, the way something's written, or the situation the character's in. There can be a little, twinkle or this or that. But I think, yeah, less is more. Like, I've said it 3 times.
Unless, which you must really believe that, which, unless it's implied in the script, I guess that there's no reason to try and add extra flavor on. Then, we don't need the backstory of his wife divorced him last week and now he's, on the bottle, and it's yeah, exactly.
It actually looks, it doesn't do you any favors. In fact, it's a hindrance to like sort of create too much out of a role, and the idea is you just sort of knuckle down, do a small role well, you get on set, you get the part, you then meet people, then parts come and bigger parts come from that. But
sure.
Yeah. Is that helpful?
We'll find out. we'll find out what people do next time you get a co-star role coming through. Let me know how it comes across and if people are doing that. I've got someone in the waiting room, so I'm going to bring them in and let them ask a question or two. It gives you a break from me. Hopefully Rosa is here and ready. She is. Hello.
Hi, Rosa.
Hiya, how are you?
Just
How are you doing?
Yeah, fine, thanks.
Good. You had a good Monday?
Do you know what? I always do that thing where I'm like, what day is it? What have I done?
We literally were saying that earlier. It's like Monday, it could be.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, earlier when I went out for my little daily walk, because it was so sunny today, the guy in the cafe was like, do you have a good weekend? And I was like, weekend? What did I do this weekend? And I was like, okay, need to start remembering. Anyway, hello.
Hello. How are you?
Yeah, do you know what? Good. It was a good weekend. It was actually my boyfriend's birthday on Saturday, and then obviously last night we started watching Line of Duty, and we all got excited about that.
Yeah.
and you were filming with me at the weekend, which is also really important. Yes.
You know, I didn't know whether that was like under wraps or
nice save, nice play.
Nice filming.
We're doing a remote Zoom little series to keep ourselves busy. So got some writing done, and we're just all jumping on Zoom every so often, and everybody's being very generous with their time, and it's interesting to act on Zoom.
Yes, I can imagine, and it is interesting. We were just talking, Rosa, about sort of auditions on Zoom and how odd that is, but how also a bit like everything else this year, how normal that's become. But it's also obviously not as effective. But it's so good that you guys are doing that. I think it's amazing what people have done with this year, and the creativity that's come out of it. And yeah, well done.
Well, I think we're not supposed to be sharing scenarios. I won't share scenarios. I was like, how under wraps is the web series?
I mean, you can do, just not anything major.
No, I was just gonna say, I guess the year
I'm like,
I know. We've also had quite good examples of, but like real life examples of things like the potato filter and like,
oh sure, yeah,
American lawyer, poor man being a cat. Honestly, that killed me. I think that was probably the highlight of my year so far. So
I don't know what you're talking about.
No, you've not seen this?
No.
I'll email you the link after we've done with this.
Oh, I literally was like, God, where have I been?
The lawyer who had a cat face.
That, yeah, I have to say that genuinely, wow. I don't think anything like
I love how we're guilting Claire into something that really doesn't mean anything at all, just some random social media meme, and it's like, you don't know about this?
Literally, I'm clinging on to the joyful things, okay? That brought me a lot of joy. You need to watch it. It's so
I know. I'm excited. Now I'm gonna have a very joyful evening. Clearly.
There you go. There you go.
With a cat face and a potato.
Yeah. Anyway, I don't know what you've already chatted about, so sorry if this is already stuff that you've covered. But you said you'd kind of touched on Zoom castings, and actually I was going to ask how, a lot of the time, the best bit about going to actually read with somebody and be in the room is that you get to collaborate on it. You get that immediate feedback. You have that moment of tweaking something, and now a lot of meetings are happening more on Zoom as opposed to just solely on tape, and I was just kind of wondering how that had been, if that had been a big shift or.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's been an interesting time, because it's also, there's a sort of ease to, it could carry on like this. I could be working from home, and you can effectively cast from stuff like Zoom, but it's not the same at all. And personally, I think I can't wait to get back in the room with actors. It's part of the process that I think, personally anyway, I enjoy the most, working with actors, helping bring the best performance, helping you guys bring the best performance you can, and also in the room, it's easier in the room to sort of gauge how someone's feeling. We did actually touch on this, so I won't go, in depth with it, but it's also easier sometimes to give notes. I've been very aware and of being quite sensitive during this time. You don't know what people are going through, and sometimes if you're with someone in the room, you can be not harsh, but you can be like, no, that's just not right, this is da-da-da. Whereas over Zoom, I don't want it, when you're in the room and you can gauge that someone might be sort of, being a bit offended by something, you can then sort of say, this isn't, don't be offended, it's just not working for the character, or there's those sort of things. I just find it means it's not as straightforward, and it's just nicer, I think. There's obviously a convenience to it, but
I mean, obviously it's great that it can still happen, but it can be quite hard to know as well, like how to, I guess, pitch it when you don't, like from my, from an actor's point of view, like when you don't have the ability to like also read into like, all the other clues that you can pick up on. So yeah, I think it will be amazing when that can happen again. Although,
how have you found it? How have you both found it as actors? Because I know self tapes are a big thing anyway, and they were before COVID. But I don't know, having an actual audition over Zoom, how, you found that trickier, or do you almost find it? I sometimes think maybe actors, it might be nicer because you're like, if there's a slight barrier between you and the director, if it's a recall, or the casting director, or but
I personally would always pick being in the room, but I've been like grateful that they've been happening. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, if it's on Zoom or whatever other version it has to happen in, like, that's fine. But I always think there's a barrier in a, like, I don't want to sound negative, but yeah, just like not in the most constructive way when that's the case. I don't know about you, Ash.
I mean, I think the ability to get to do stuff on your own space in your own time is definitely a benefit, because, doing it on Zoom or in a self-tape, you have a bit more fluidity there. But what you lose, in my experience, is, to your point, that insight or that redirection. So you can do a take or you can do something on Zoom, but then the adjustment isn't quite as real time, or you don't quite maybe get the note as fluidly because it just doesn't translate as naturally over this medium. And that's kind of been my experience of it. I think in the room is always going to be better, just because you're going to be with real people on the set. So it gives you at least an idea as to how you can bring that material to life in a space that's not your own private four walls, which can also feel, whilst it's nice, it can also feel a little bit, you can fall into an illusion, I think, the trap of getting a bit too comfortable in your own space as well.
I think one thing I've found as well is that, and this goes for everyone, myself included, not just actors, but everyone's very in their head at the moment, and so I have found that I've got it self-tapes through, and there's so much thought that's been put into them, like too much almost, and it's in some ways there's this not a desperation, but you'll want the part. There's I think there's actually there is so much content being made now, but late last year there was less, and there's people are overthinking, and I think that in the room and you're with someone, straight off I can be like, nah, let's do it again, like this is too much, quicken the pace, don't think about it, throw the line away. I think I found some tapes that I've got to be more theatrical almost, because it's a tape, there's something to do, like let's really like go all out, this is going to be a great audition, which sometimes there's almost too much thought. That's another thing I would say about this time. But.
So with those then, Claire, have you been able to go back to those people and give them a note to readjust, or is it just sometimes actually
it depends on the role and depends on who it is, and if it's been quite a small part and I've got 10 good auditions and then like 20 that are just too much, no, I haven't, but if it's a bigger role and, you know, I'm like, this person's got something interesting, and oh, I really love what she did there, and, you know, I love what Ash did here, then I would go back and say, listen, some of it's lovely and great, but some of it you're overthinking, and, you know, that your pace is just too slow. It's too, you know, let's just liven it up, like sharpen it up, pace it up, you know. And that's sometimes just the note people need, regardless of the COVID time. But the COVID time, is that it?
You've just coined that.
Yeah, the new name.
Yeah.
Yeah, do you know, I think the thing about self-tapes in general, and I had this chat with a friend actually, she said she finds idents harder, or slates, and she did like 20 things with slate, and I was literally like, what, why? But I just think it's so easy, as you said, for people to like
overthinking
about it. Totally.
I mean, no one cares about idents. I mean, that's a big statement to make. Obviously we care about them, but it's, you know, it is so simple. And
yeah.
And no
one's gonna like read into a little whatever. But yeah, I think that's a really good point.
You know, we're all overthinking everything almost, and everyone's so it's not surprising.
Yeah. I had a question, as somebody who speaks more than one language. Would you, because I'm always like, do I bother putting something into my reel that shows the other language? Is it worth it? Is it not? What if I've always thought it'd be better to have like a better scene as opposed to one where you're just like randomly, you know, speaking it.
What language do you speak?
Spanish, Korean, Italian.
Amazing.
You said another language, singular, not.
I know, but I'm
like reading off, you know, 5 languages. Very impressive. Okay, so no, I wouldn't.
No, I wouldn't put a scene with all of those. That would be.
No, but actually I don't, unless, so say you've done an amazing like Korean film or Spanish film or something where you're really proud of your acting in it, or really proud of the director and the actual sort of I would include that. But if you're not, no, because if I was looking for a, you know, Korean, Spanish, whoever it is for a role, it will say on your spotlight your agency should be flagging it if I'm searching. So and that would be the time where I'd then be like, oh, will you send me clips of her in, you know, speaking Korean or
got it. Okay, cool. That's what I thought. Just wanted to check.
I
don't know. Oh, I had this thought actually, that I don't really know that much about how things work your end when it comes to getting work. So I was like, how does your process look like? Do you approach directors or production companies? Or
it's a good question. I mean, I've literally just started out on my own, probably not the best time, but I think it will be a better time soon, if that makes sense. So at the moment I've got work through people I've worked for in the past and through sort of connections that I've got in the industry. I mean, my first feature that I did last year was someone I'd met before, sort of through people, and we got on very well. I think, so, you know, the relationship between a casting director and a director is an interesting one. And I've seen, and obviously growing up in the industry under Kate, watching, you know, there were certain directors that she worked with who she was very close to, and others, people it sort of worked very well with. And, you know, like Gavin Hood, for example, who is the loveliest man, who we worked on Eye in the Sky with and Official Secrets, and he's just brilliant. You know, they got on very well. He's, you know, he had a certain process and it suited her process, and and so I think, yeah, as time goes on, you sort of build in the industry is the kind of idea. But with, you know, I think casting, it can take a while to, and you hope to get that first series or feature or that then does well, and then you're kind of, then stuff starts rolling, I think, is how it works. But obviously I'm a baby casting director, I would say, even though sadly I don't look it, but, you know, I'm just you know, I was an associate for 8 years and left Kate a year ago. I worked a bit for Gary Davey, but at tricky times he obviously had everything shut down kind of in the industry, and then, you know, have worked a bit for him, a bit on my own. And so I'm just very much at the kind of start of stuff and looking, you know, thinking about approaching, say, agents or different producers who I've worked for in the past. But so yeah, it's sort of, I guess, you know, you've got to hustle. It's not, you know, I think what happens with casting is a bit like actors in a way. Once you get to a certain stage, projects can kind of come to you. However, I know big casting directors and have worked for them, and they're like, oh, I wish I was working for that person, or I want to get that, you know. It's
no, it just suddenly struck me today that I was like, I don't know much about how things work your end, and for a second I was like, I wonder if they sort of like, I mean, you said it, hustle and like pitch in a way that an actor might, and, you know, sort of like present their view on their vision of something and see whether it matches up.
I think as well, you get approached for stuff through things you've previously done, you know. Like I worked a lot for Warner Brothers and for under Kate, obviously, when we were doing pilots, and I got approached recently by someone I'd worked for on a series a pilot series, but I worked for like 3 months on that series and very much did it under a casting director in the States. And through that process, someone has remembered me and then has approached, because they now know I'm not working for it. So things just happen, but you can't kind of wait for that to happen. A bit like being an actor, isn't it?
It's everybody creative. You kind of have to just pull up your bootstraps and just go for it.
Which is, you know, sometimes, I don't think it's in everyone's nature, actors, casting directors, costume designers, whoever you are, to push yourselves. But there's an element sometimes about being creative or being in a creative industry where you have to sort of, you know, but without sounding too wrong. Self always sounds like a dodgy sort of thing to say, and capacity, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, we know.
Cool.
Last question, because Ash is going to kick me off. If you could cast any genre or like thing, what would you do? Young,
always. It's so exciting. If you're casting, I mean, I've been so lucky. I have auditioned so many amazing people, and, you know, working for Kate, I very much took a lot of auditions whilst I was under her, and so I met some brilliant people, and really but always for me, young and hunting for new faces is always the best. You know, I look at someone who, like Lucy Parody, who cast Rocks.
Oh my God.
But it's incredible, and like that's casting genius. You know, she's amazing. That I watched that, and she found those actresses and who, you know, barely done nothing, and that for me, that would be an exciting project to cast, I think. So independent stuff, I think, is exciting, because you've got a little bit more you've got more chances to be creative. I mean, I've worked on a lot of stuff that's more, you know, Marvel series and things like that, and it's actually, you know, it's obviously very exciting, and I'm sure the money's probably better and all this, but it's less, you're much more constrained if you're working for a big studio, which is an incredible opportunity as well. I don't want to sound, like I wouldn't want to, obviously wouldn't want to work on things like that as well, but having, you know, done a bit of both, independent is tougher sometimes, because the money is not always as good for the actors. But if you're searching for like new, fresh talent, that would always be love it.
Yeah, makes sense. That makes sense. All right, well, thank you for letting me jump on, Ashley.
Of course.
Have a good evening, Clem.
See you soon. Thank you.
Bye, Rosa.
Bye.
You should have said the next independent Spanish, Italian, Korean, whatever other language she spoke indie film, right?
Well, I don't know. I don't need to. I don't know if I need to impress Rosa or think.
No. It's interesting what you're saying though about the bigger studio stuff versus the indie stuff. It's kind of like what I remember George Clooney always saying. He had that idea of one for me, one for them. How we do one big studio film and then do something indie, because
I think a lot of actors probably do say that, because there is I think sometimes getting the creative juices flowing, is there's not always probably so much opportunity for it in some of the kind of more I don't know, particularly thinking of those like big studio films. There's
just more moving parts, I guess, more politics, for lack of a term.
Then you don't always get the kind of raw, sort of maybe slightly like depressive kind of, parts that actors, I'm actually talking about being actors now, who like to indulge in, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
It's more exciting for their craft, I think, than playing like, Superman or something. It's not quite as,
again, like you say, each one, it's not that it's better or worse, it's just different kind of experience. Before Henry Cavill writes in to complain. For you, when you're working with a director, then what's your utopia? What does the ideal working collaboration with a director look like for you from the casting side?
I mean, just really getting a sense of what they want is obviously vital. So sitting down initially and hearing who they like, what actors they admire, who they sometimes have envisaged for a role, but every director is very different. And if they don't have that foresight or that knowledge, sometimes I'm always surprised some directors really don't have great knowledge of actors. And so really what I would always tend to do is just hit the ground running almost and get people taping. Then you can show a plethora of people, say for some of the lead roles. It depends for every film. And just like we were saying, if studio versus independent, if you're working on a big studio film, some of the lead roles will obviously be, or need to be, someone with a name. So therefore you're just doing lists, and I prepare lots of different lists for them to kind of go through and see who piques their interest. Oh, I like her. Maybe send some show reels or clips from different stuff they've done, and just see. It's all about gauging who they like. And likewise, if it's, say you're casting an unknown in quite a lead role, again, just getting the ball rolling, getting people taping, and quite quickly putting people in front of the director, or like for them just to see, so you can see what kind of thing they go for. Because if you don't know them, you want to get a sense of their sensibilities, and I think and get to know them a bit and how they work. So really, obviously, just sitting down initially, that's how, you need to make that first step.
Sure. Yeah, I guess it's about that vibe of sort of your creative sensibilities and their coming together.
Yeah, and to be honest, it's not about the casting director. I think it's about the director. This is their film, their baby. We are there to provide a service in a way. So actually, it's not really a collaborative sort of seeing, as you said, the, meeting of sensibilities at all. It would be me seeing how they work and how they like to work. Some directors like to see, everyone but the dog for a role, and some are like, just give me 4 people and just make sure they're really good, and then I'll go from there. And so it's just kind of feeling them out, I think.
And that's also tonally and thematically, though, I guess was sort of more where I was going with that, in terms of, you're going to have your personal tastes and preferences and the kind of way that you see things creatively. They have their vision and their sort of tone and approach, and you just kind of have to mesh a little bit with their vision and what they're looking for.
Yeah, of course, exactly. I mean, tonally, I don't know. I think if you're working for someone, and I would hope that if I feel like these 5 actors will be the best for a role, I would hope they would probably agree. I'd be excited to show them these, this amazing talented bunch, and they've hopefully want to work with me because I've got a good eye and because I've got a good sensibility for these things. So, yeah.
Cool. Talking about talented actors, let me bring in the next one who's waiting in the room. That was such a good segue. It was terrible. Let me bring in Joseph, who is in the waiting room. I hope he is. Hey, Joe.
Can you hear me?
Can now. How you doing?
Hello there. Yeah, I'm well. How you doing?
All good, all good. I'm going to shut up, give you 5 minutes with Claire just to have a chat, ask you questions. Time's yours.
Awesome.
Do you think?
Thank you. Cheers for that, Ash. Hi, Claire. How you doing?
I'm good, thanks. How are you? Have you had a good Monday?
Yeah, lovely Monday. Yeah, very nice. Thank you. I just wanted to jump straight into it. And I'm going to be quite specific to me, but hopefully that might make sense to other people. So my agents just contacted me and said they want everyone setting up on Actors Access. They've been talking to their sort of sister agencies in New York, and they want everyone on there for pilot season. And Actors Access have this brilliant thing of what do you call it, like an ident, like, you know, when you click on the picture. Yeah. And I was wondering, because I know that you work for and done stuff like Brits in US dramas and stuff.
Yeah, no.
What's the best way to position myself on there as obviously as a Yorkshireman who can do flawless American, but also I'm trying to get my Czech citizenship, and I do a lot of work in Eastern European accents and stuff. And for the American market,
So do you mean what accent you feel like you
should
be in? I would say, can I be really honest? I actually don't know what Actors Access is, which perhaps
it's like their Spotlight kind of equivalent.
Yeah. Well, if that's for the American market and the American pilot stuff, I mean, I would actually probably say to do your ident in US. It'll say, I'm sure, just like Spotlight, that you are actually a Brit, but I think it's helpful. I get asked this a lot, and also when we would, when I was doing auditions for pilot season and stuff, sorry, I didn't want to say that. I get asked this a lot as if that's it's a very smart question, and it's actually a very tricky question, and but I think you're wanting to be seen and believed as an American, then do the ident American, because no matter what anyone says, and even I'll often say, like, well, they can see that you're British and they know you're a Brit, you're auditioning, with us, and but I think it helps to just believe the whole audition that they're completely believably American. If they then heard you say, like, oh, I'm Joe, in the northern accent, like,
hey up.
Like, what is he saying? I don't know. So I would say, yeah, definitely better to just, I think it's more fluid.
Okay, cool. That's quite a nice thing to hear. Like, and then I suppose there's sort of the Eastern European stuff. Because I know that was quite, I want to say, fashionable. It was a bit of a thing a while ago, and I thought was quite a good in for me. And it feels like those Eastern European baddies are sort of on the wane a little bit now. Is that fair? Or
perhaps I think that's always. I don't think that'll ever just fade.
It'll never die.
That is shot over there as well. So that's great that you're hopefully going to get. What is it, like a visa to go and work there, or?
No. Well, my family's Czech, so my dad is currently trying to sort out his Czech citizenship and passport and things like that. My uncle's already done it, and then once my dad's done it, then I can get dual citizenship.
That's great.
And that's also, I was hoping to use that to try and, under the Czech citizenship, I can enter the green card lottery thing, which I can't do as a Brit.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
I'm giving away all the secrets.
Well, I mean,
my plan.
It doesn't affect me, to be honest. But that is interesting that's great that you are able to do that, because obviously now it is a real string to your bow to have the. I mean, it's not life changing. I know so many actors. I've had messages from being like, is it going to be so much trickier to work in the EU if I'm not? But yeah, sometimes it will. It's
not going to hurt.
Step up for you to, because every now, last minute, you sometimes need someone to fly out in 2 days because of whatever, and it's TV and it's crazy, as you both know. So
yeah.
yeah, that's really great. But I think in terms of the actor's access, if it's American, even with the Eastern European accent, I don't think you need that, because really what I have found, and I've worked on lots of series that have shot over in Europe and Eastern Europe, and there's usually a casting director over there who will do more local roles, and it's them that you need to sort of target and make sure they know, hey, there's this guy, he's based in Yorkshire, but he's like a phenomenally, like, you know, believable, has a believable like Czech accent, or I mean, you probably actually do have a. Can you speak Czech?
No, I've learned bits of Czech, and I've learned bits of Polish, and I've learned bits of Russian for various jobs. But no, I've been trying to learn Spanish in lockdown, and it's not very helpful. But
well done.
it's better
with people who've said that, who've been like, yeah, I've been learning a new language in lockdown. I'm like, wow, well done. You know.
I prefaced with trying. Yeah, it's a long slog, but it's good fun. That's what you do. There was something else I was wanting to, which was just in terms of like for you. You've obviously, I've seen you've been you're casting director on short films now. Like, do you prefer like being like that big cog in a smaller project, or like one of many cogs in some of the bigger projects you've worked on? What gives you the buzz?
Do you know what? That's an interesting question. I would say though, casting a short film or working on a big feature film as an associate, I mean, it's I think it's a natural progression mostly to want to then cast your own stuff, because, and I think it depends what casting directors you've worked for in the past, and you know, it can be quite it's a pretty collaborative process. And I think as an associate, you're not necessarily just, you know, you're probably not for everyone, but you're giving ideas, you're there in director sessions a lot, and you're very much part of a team. And it's exciting because they're bigger projects. For, you know, some of the stuff I've obviously worked for in the past, you're meeting amazing actors, getting incredible opportunities, and obviously for short films it's just different. It's a smaller, but that's really exciting as well. It's a bit more of a kind of it's just exciting to work with contemporaries, I guess. So you know, one of my first short films that I worked for like 4 years ago, I was working for a really talented young director called Leo Lonsdale, who's my age, who is now casting the Dangerous Liaisons TV series. She cast the Agatha Christie. We got Billie Piper. I read her short film script, and it was so amazing, and I fell in love with it, and I was like, God, she's talented. And so I was like, yes, I will cast it. And I managed to get Billie Piper for the job, and Sinead Cusack, and a little girl called Polly Polovnik, who's very talented. It was really special. So that, yes, in a way it's more exciting sometimes, like things like that. It was very much me, who I'd just seen Billie Piper in Yerma, and obviously Billie's amazing, and she's very big now, but at the time she was big, but not necessarily, like Leo didn't really know her. And
was it pre what was the Diary of a Call Girl, wasn't it? The really sort of
well,
that kind of changed everyone's opinion, didn't it?
Yeah, exactly. No, this was obviously after that, because that was a long time ago, I think. But she I don't know, her I think her star's like risen even further. But for a short film, I mean, it's you just want to get brilliant actors, and it's really exciting. So yeah, I guess it's exciting in different ways, and I think it's you know, in working in casting in the industry, you're sort of working your way up, I guess, and you know, you don't sort of, I think things are changing, and you can make a sort of bigger career progression when you're younger now. But certainly when I started, you know, it's important to have that experience, I think, and work on different films and TV series and feel really ready to be able to take on, you know, bigger stuff solo, you know.
Yeah,
that all makes sense sometimes.
Yeah, definitely. I because I sometimes assist in for casting, but like for commercials and stuff, and I you know, watch it. And it's just not, it's nice getting people's. I
just love working with actors, to be honest, as well. So it's, you know, and young talent and auditioning and finding people. So it's exciting, whatever. Like when I've I worked on Sabrina, the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, for like 4 months, and we were doing it as we were just working on it on pilot season. But David Rappaport, who's amazing, who cast, got us to work on it, and we were also doing Official Secrets at the same time. And so Kate was very much on that, and I sort of took over the 4 roles for Sabrina. And I mean, I was literally hearing the lines in my sleep, because you know, you're auditioning sort of 20 young actors a day. We had, but actually Chance Paldomo ended up getting cast as one of the lead roles in it, who's a Brit, and it was exciting, and you do get to know, I don't know, just working with young talent, and yeah, it's pretty joyful, I gotta say.
Oh, that is lovely to hear. That is lovely to hear. Well, what are you watching at the moment that's like?
Do you know what I just finished watching, which is brilliant, and I feel like I hadn't read about it. One of my friends recommended it. It's called Losing Alice, not to be confused with
Finding
Alice. Yeah, and it's on Apple TV, and it's Israeli. You can, if you prefer to listen to it in English, you can, and it is absolutely brilliant. And it's about a female director who's sort of, she's had kids, her husband's a very famous actor, and she sort of hasn't directed anything for a while. She's lost her mojo, and then this young, fresh talent comes on into her and her husband's life. She's sort of sexy and cool and an incredible writer, and she takes on her movie, and the husband acts as the lead role in it, and it's really brilliant. I can't recommend enough. It's a thriller. It's what's that?
Series or film?
Series, yeah.
Series. Oh, awesome.
7 episodes. I really, really recommend it, and it's quite sort of, it's thrillery drama, but beautifully done and acted. So that, I've loved that. And then what else? I mean, stuff that's quite It's a Sin, I thought was brilliant. I mean, it's shocking that I have to think, you know. Well, Line of Duty, obviously.
But
I mean,
I'm waiting on that. I've put it off, and I'm not sure why, but it's coming.
It's quite intense. We were saying this last night. I was like, it's 9 o'clock on a Sunday night to then like have an hour of that and then be like, right, bedtime, ready for the week. It's not easy, is it? Because it's
like, I went back and I started watching The Americans, which I didn't watch when it first came out. So So I've sort of had that as my go-to series, and then obviously Line of Duty came up. I was like, oh, yeah, it's on the list.
Yeah, no, I love The Americans. Matthew Rhys is just I worked in he's so brilliant. I worked in for a production company when I was younger. I sort of assisted producers before I got into casting, and I worked for a brilliant producer who produced The Edge of Love, which was with Sienna Miller and Keira Knightley. It's quite an old.
Oh yeah.
And he was sort of in that, and he came into the office one day, and I worked for her after she'd done, like, quite a few years after she'd done that. But and he's just like the nicest man in the world, as well, as you can imagine. So I feel like I started watching The Americans for that, but then got completely ensconced. It's an exciting one.
It is a good one. Yeah. Lovely. Thank you very much. I'll hand back to Ash. I just want to say hi. That's great. Thank you.
Thank you. Hopefully see you soon.
Yeah. Have a lovely.
The Czech, Czech visa.
Yeah, it's all in the hands of lawyers, and yeah.
What happened?
Fingers crossed. Lovely.
Take care.
Cheers, Claire. Cheers, Ash.
No worries. Take care, man. Thanks for coming on.
See you.
Bye.
Bye.
There we go. Yeah, it's an interesting one, the whole Brexit thing. The amount of time that people have asked that. I'm sure you must get asked it all the time, and it's like,
yeah, it's a tricky one. To be honest, it's a bit like when we did pilot season, there was the odd time, and it did happen sometimes, which is so awful, that we cast someone in a role and they couldn't get their visa through in time to shoot the pilot, and they lost out on the role. And also there was the odd time where you would be asked by ABC or Warner's, like, please let us know who's got a US or an O1 visa or a green card, because you know, that might just tip it for us, for them to get the part, but it didn't happen all the time though. So I think it's going to be a similar thing. It's sometimes the ease of, it's just TV is mental,
Sure.
as you know. So if there's something shooting and the writers are like, okay, we need someone extra in this scene and there's no one great over in Hungary for the role, then it's got to come from the UK, but we've got to also find someone who's,
it's time. The time is the huge commodity with everything, but especially in our industry. So yeah, it makes total sense. They can't be waiting on a 10-day turnaround and they're nervously wondering if it's going to come through, because not going to happen. Right. There's one more person to bring on. So let me bring on Emma, let her ask a few questions, and then we'll circle back and round this thing up. If this works, it does. Hey, Emma.
Hi.
Hi,
How-
Emma.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Yeah, I'm well.
Have a nice weekend. I mean, you know, probably not wild, but, or maybe.
I can't actually remember what I did.
Everyone said that. I feel like I can't remember what I did. I mean, we're all doing the same thing all the time.
Yeah.
And having the same conversations about it all the time. I do.
Yeah. Oh, I do remember what I did actually. I went on a bike ride yesterday, and I haven't actually ridden a bike since I was like 10. So that was,
Wow.
well, I remembered how to do it.
How's your bum feeling this morning?
So sore. Yeah, and I'm not used to, like, you know, when you're a kid and the handlebars are like a normal height. Well, these modern bikes, like, you lean really far forwards. So I was not used to I was not used to that at all.
And you feel like you're gonna sort of literally
yeah. And going down a hill, I was like just clinging on for dear life. But you know, I'll get there.
You survived. You're alive.
I'm not going to become a pro cyclist. We'll just put that out there now. But it was good. It was nice.
Well done. Also, it's such a good sense of achievement. Sometimes there's odd things over lockdown that because I hadn't ridden a bike for years, and I also started riding a bike at the beginning of, I don't know, April last year, and I was like, God, check me, you know.
Yeah. I had to, before we went out, I had to do like a test to see whether I could remember it or not. So I literally just went up and down the street. A test for myself. I don't mean like a thing.
I thought there was like an official online test you have to do if you've not ridden a bike.
I don't want to get onto a road and forget how to stop. So I was like, I'm just gonna go around the block.
Very wise. Very wise.
The neighbours are like, are you all right? Remembering how to ride a bike at 31.
You and the like 5-year-old kid next door.
Yeah, and I borrowed my cousin's helmet, so it didn't really fit very well. And I looked a bit of an idiot, but I'm okay. She has a very small head, I've realised. I have a significantly larger head than her.
Yeah, well.
Yeah, it didn't really fit, but it was good.
Ask away your questions if you have any.
I remembered there was a reason why I was here. I'm just a chat. So my question was actually about accents. I don't know if this has already been asked, but I was wondering, for you, your personal preference, when you have a breakdown and there is a specific accent that an actor has to do, and the people that you call in don't necessarily have that as their native accent, for either walking into the room or for the ident, would you prefer them actors to come in as them and then go into the accent, or would you just prefer from the get-go? Because I'm always very confused about.
I mean, what I would always say is I want you to come in and feel like comfortable, and you're going to do a strong audition. And in the past, I've worked on a lot of US stuff, and obviously with a lot of Brits coming in as US, and a lot of the times they'll come in and be like, hey Claire, da 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 da, or whatever, because it helps them, you know. It's very, for you as an actor, it's whatever makes you feel comfortable. If you came in, you know, speaking with a Russian accent for me because you're about to do a Russian scene, I know you're not Russian, but it makes sense to me. It's the sort of fluidity, you've got into character, you've woken up that morning. And you know, I read an interview recently with Cosmo Jarvis, who is a brilliant actor who was just in a film called Calm with Horses, which is a fantastic film. I really recommend it. And he plays Irish, and I think he plays Northern Irish actually, which is even harder. And he's English, but he went over on set, and there's a lot of Northern Irish actors over there who he was working with. He was Northern Irish the whole time. When he woke up, all the catering staff, with everyone, and apparently when he finished the film and they all had the wrap party and he was suddenly London, they were like, what? You know, like, but you gotta do whatever is gonna feel right for you for an audition. You shouldn't worry about casting directors, or, you know, for that sort of thing. We would understand why, you know, you're trying to help yourself.
Right. Okay. No, it's really interesting, because I don't know if there is a rule. I suppose there isn't really, but just, you never know whether, if you're going to come in your own accent and then suddenly break out into, I don't know, Northern Irish or American or whatever it is, and are people going to sort of either be like looking for you to slip up, or I don't know, maybe.
No,
so I was wondering.
No, it's really, don't think about, there's no rule, it's really what is going to be best for you. We're there to like see you do that scene. It's not really about the chit chat, or we can do that after, but so really you just want to concentrate on what's going to make you nail the part and nail the accent. And if it helps for you, just sort of, you know, even be speaking with the accent to your boyfriend that morning, you should be, you know, it's all helpful for you. And I actually really would have thought it is more helpful to, you know, Ash, I don't know if you, when you've done accents before, agree, like if it's helpful to be consistent with it in your own, you know.
If it's one that you don't do on a regular basis and doesn't come overly naturally to you, then yes, because I think it's easy, especially when you do an emotional part of a scene, that's always when you drop out. So just that consistency of doing it, I think helps for sure.
Yeah,
that's helpful.
Yeah, I think it's just interesting to hear that no one's going to be really bothered, I suppose, whether you come in with it or not. I
mean, maybe someone might be. I don't want you to, but
no,
I don't know why I've never experienced it in 8-9 years, and I don't know why anyone would be, because it makes complete sense, you know.
Yeah, of course. Thank you. That was my question. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me, guys.
We can talk about bikes now. Let's talk about bikes again.
Yes, wear knee pads and a helmet.
Amazing. Thanks, Emma.
Thank you so much. Nice to meet you, Claire. And
you too. Thank you so much. Take care.
See you later. Bye.
So are these all actors that you've worked with recently, or?
No, some I have, some. So Joe, I don't actually know Joe that well. He was at the same acting studio as me, but we never really crossed paths in the same class. I just put the feelers out and told people, you were coming on. I like to bring on fellow actors. Anyone who's interested, let me know, because I think you probably know better than I do. There's been a whole slew of stuff happening for actors this last year, but there's way more actors than there are slots available for one-to-ones or workshops. So just with the 2 or 3 people I can, trying to let them come on and have a chance to connect, because something to do, and it helps us feel part of
of course
everything.
You set this up obviously this year. Is this something you've been doing?
I set this up 1.5 years ago, and so I'd had the idea of doing it, and I put it to the back burner because my dad was ill. I had to look after him.
Really sorry to hear that.
Everything. No, he didn't. He passed away, but everything kind of went to the back burner with that. Pre-COVID, this was like 2019. So I came back out of that ready to kind of get going. And a friend of mine just said, "Oh, have you ever thought of doing like a podcast? Because I could see you doing that." And it just retweaked that thing for me. So last January, I started up, and then COVID hit. And my plan was to just talk to various people from different walks of life, with casting being an eventuality. But as soon as this happened, I saw, well, we all have so much more time. Let me just reach out and see if anybody wants to get involved. And it's just snowballed from there. So most of the people are casting professionals like yourself from here or from the States. And it's been really good. It's been really good to get insights from all the different vantage points, to see the common threads, but also to see also the fact that everyone has their own subjective little view on it as well. So from an actor side, you just have to go in and do your thing, because at the end of the day, there is no rule of thumb, there is no guarantee to any of it, and it's all super subjective.
Is that something you feel like you've learned from doing this as well? Because some of your questions initially, and obviously, and this isn't, I think I said this earlier, I felt a bit bad to Joe. I was like, I get asked this a lot, and it's not a criticism of the question, but I think it's just because I totally understand, and I think you were sort of asking a bit about it earlier. It's like, what can an actor do that's, I get asked a lot, like, what can an actor do to like stand out and those sort of things. And it is, God, it's annoying because I'm always replying, I don't think there's not a formula, and that's what's so frustrating about this industry in a way. And also what I would stress, and maybe is hopefully helpful for people to hear, is you can sometimes come in for a part and for whatever reason it's not quite right, but you're exciting and interesting, and I'm like, I really like this person and they're going to be so great for something else, and in like a year and a half's time there's another part that I'm like, oh yeah, that actor that came in, and you get people in again and it suits, or maybe even in 6 months time or whatever it is, and it's not because you weren't completely right for that part, but it's also taste. The director also might have envisaged someone super quirky and a certain look as well. It can be so many different things.
Yeah.
So it's hard to always pinpoint.
They've cast the mother already and you're supposed to be the son, but you look nothing alike.
There's always something, but equally, I think always with an audition, it's not always, and that's why it's so great coming into the room. I think even more so than than Zoom auditions, is because you come into the room, you meet someone. If you're not right for that role, you've met that person, you can gauge, how their talent or their sensibilities and all these things, and in the future there will be something they are right for. And yeah, so you're always auditioning, not just for the one role you're coming in for, but you're auditioning for all the roles in a way in the future as well. And yeah, it's good to just, I guess, get in front,
take the pressure off of that short-term need, which is hard because when people have bills or mortgages, that comes into play too, but then that can be counterproductive to the art, and it's this weird balancing act. But I mean, I asked those questions because I'm mindful of who the audience is, and I want the response that you just gave to be the kind of thing that comes out, because everybody normally says that in their own way, but I feel like if each time people like yourself keep repeating it in their own words, another person or a few people who hear it, it might tweak for them. And that's, I think that's important, because my view is, like you said earlier, it's not us versus them or us versus directors. It's all collaborative. And I think for actors, we need to remember that we should keep empowering ourselves, because if we give our power away, game over.
Yeah. And also I've literally just had a complete mind blank. How embarrassing is that?
Oh, but I felt like you had something good. I feel like there was something there. It'll come back later.
It'll come back. No, I'm just so aware that there are so many like life pressures and that everyone has, and you just want to get that job. And but I think what I do sometimes find, and do your homework as well. I do sometimes actors do come in, and I'm sure not people who are listening to this, but there's a certain sense of well, I think I'm really right for this, and I've learned the lines, and seen many a very talented, quite well-known actor come in whilst I was working for Kate, scribbled notes on every line, looked at the way that the way they can, the dynamics of the line and the kind of vocally how they can say things, how it can, and have obviously really thought about the technicalities, but also then really worked on it so it's natural, so they throw away the lines. This isn't, it is hard, and it is there are lots of brilliant actors out there, and it is keeping the faith as well, and it's tough, and I think that's sometimes the hardest thing. But do always remember that you are if you are seen, you are remembered and you are on file. And, you know, that's, you know, casting directors should have a good backlog of, you know, talent and good memory for faces. I can't remember much, to be honest, but like I remember faces very well. You know, you remember, and you're always going to be remembered. So always do a good job, even if you get called in for an audition and you think it's not right for you. This is not just about that audition, or it's about like your career.
And sometimes your agent knows that, and your agent might be putting you in for that because they know something is coming down the line that might tie in. But I guess also it's that, you know, sometimes it's just about the right place and the right piece of material coming to you at the time that is best suited to where you are in your life. And I think when it fits, it just fits, and you can't control that per se either, which is equally frustrating and annoying.
Yeah.
But also liberating in some senses too, because it's like, all right, well, I've just got to keep showing up and doing the work, and also find other things to do with your life. It doesn't have to be just acting 24/7, the only thing on your mind, because you don't then have enriching life experiences to then bring to the work as well. So it's all
so true. And, you know, it's been interesting. I feel like I've talked a bit about pilots, quite a lot about pilots. I think people are often interested in that. And also because of working on pilot season, we used to see so many actors every day. And I remember the first probably 3 years of working for Kate, maybe 2 years, there were certain actors who came in, they were very right for we'd sort of focus on lead roles for some of the pilots, or that's what we'd be asked to focus on by certain companies. And there were certain actors who were very right for some of the lead roles, and they're very good, and they came in for loads of stuff. And they'd basically be in like 3 days a week and be also probably auditioning for other stuff. And they had worked so, you could tell that they were effortless in their performance, but had obviously put everything into that. They were working seriously hard, and then never got anywhere for like years and years. And then suddenly one of the people I'm talking about is like Sam Heughan, who then suddenly he's Outlander, and now he's huge, you know, and he was successful before, like a jobbing actor, but he wasn't a name or a star in the same way. So sometimes, I'm not saying to everyone like that could be you, but I'm more saying the hard work does pay off, but it can take time.
And it might not always be with, you know, your office. It could be a different office, like in this case where it happens. I spoke to
oh yeah, very true. Yeah, exactly.
I spoke to Jane Jenkins in LA. I mean, she's retired now, but she spoke about how she auditioned George Clooney hundreds of times, never booked him once, kept bringing him back because obviously she knew he was great, just never had the right project that aligned and fit for him. But then he went on and did obviously what he did. And I think, you know, those examples and those stories are everywhere. And, you know, they are reassuring for an actor's side just to look at it and go, I can't win every office. I can't win every race and book every job. But if I keep doing the work and committing to the craft, it'll start to happen.
And yeah, I think everyone should remember that every actor has been there. I think there are obviously the exceptions where they've blown up because they've been found very young, but yeah, I think everyone would have that. You know, there are people who I've met before and who are now huge, and they never booked jobs that we were working on at the time, or so.
And it's not, I guess the point is, it's not a reflection on the talent.
No, it is. It's also it's a bit of luck as well, and also when the shoe fits. You know, some people are right for a role. I always think Emilia Clarke, when she was cast as Lou in Me Before You, she was just that part, and I was very lucky enough to like sit in with some of the chemistry reads for lots of different, well, not lots actually, like 5 females and 5 males for the lead roles. We had chemistry reads with Thea Sharrock, who's directing it, and it was fascinating watching well-known talented actors being paired up with each other, and how, first of all, chemistry is a real thing, and that sometimes you can't necessarily act, and I don't mean kind of sexual chemistry necessarily, it's just the chemistry between 2 people. It's sort of friendships, or the dynamics, or the humor, or the playfulness. But say with Emilia particularly, like, she was just so suited to that part. She even had a story of something that had happened to her earlier that day, and I remember I could see the director looking at her, and Thea Sharrock was amazing, and I could see her like cogs of her brain thinking like, oh my God, like you are Lou. Like this story that she told was that something the character would say almost. It was, yeah, I mean, she's not like the character, but there's this, you know, some people are just made.
No, but the energy and the vibe just.
Exactly, they're like made for a role. It's sort of a great fit. And that's something you could have had Julia Roberts audition for that role. And she'd
probably still get it. But I know what you mean.
But she wouldn't have been right. She would have only got it because this.
Exactly.
I'm so sorry.
That's Julia Roberts calling you.
Julia Roberts is suddenly like, what are you saying? You.
Exactly. Amazing.
Yeah.
I'll use that as a sign from the gods and Julia to start to wrap this up. One question I did want to ask you, which would be around if you were to be starting your casting journey now, not as a casting director like you're doing in perpetuity. I mean, from scratch, not having done anything, how would you approach it now, assuming there's no COVID? What would be sort of your view on that? And kind of thinking for anyone who would want to get into casting, how would you suggest starting that journey?
I mean, it's an interesting question. I think, to be honest, I don't imagine very differently to how I did start it in a way. I mean, I worked in production before, or I worked for producers, but on development. So I worked as head of development for a film company, and before that, I was in the National Youth Theatre. So I actually did some acting myself and performed at like the Soho Theatre and things when I was a lot younger. So when I came to realise that actually it was casting I wanted to get into, I wrote to people and got in that way. I feel like it's probably quite similar. I don't think you really need to just be in a casting office and see how it works and see if it's right for you, because it's an intense job sometimes. You know, it can be very all-consuming, quite cutthroat, you know, and as working as an assistant as well, it's really hard work. So I think you just need to get yourself into a casting office and experience it as well, because it also might not be right for you. You know, you might, the sensibilities that I can't even speak. I've lost the ability to speak. I think, you just need the experience. I don't think it's any different now than it was when I was younger. I think there are probably ways in which it's different for people who are like associates now or at that level. And there's more scope for moving forward in the industry quicker, I think, when you're younger than, say, when I started. I think, you know, it's a slower process. And I watched people who are younger who are sort of very quickly have kind of, but I think having lots of experience as an associate you can't really beat that, and working on different films and deals, and, you know, those things are only going to help. But, you know, as anyone who's listening who like wants to get into casting, I think you just got to write to lots of different casting directors and associates, maybe, you know, maybe try and work on some short films, but just get
dive in.
Really dive in, like anything really, because so exciting if you're younger or older. Maybe you want a career change, or you're an actor thinking you'd like to get into casting. I think you got to get a taste of it and go from there. And either you'll fall in love with it like I did, or you'll be like, these people are crazy.
No more deal memos, please. No more.
No more.
Cool. I like to wrap this up with the 10 questions that James Lipton would ask on Inside the Actor's Studio. Did you ever watch the show?
Love that show. Is that still on? Did
he passed away, like, was it last year? I think it was pretty recent. Yeah.
I've forgotten about that show. That was one of my like favorite.
Yeah.
Oh, so
great
good.
show. Well, in that case, then I'm glad. So you can answer these questions knowing what they are beforehand. I'm gonna see if I remember what they are. That was more me buying time for myself. The first question is, what is your favorite word?
Happy.
You don't sound convinced. that was Is
No.
your favorite word happy as a question? Because that's how you said it.
I'm not convinced at all. Delicious.
Okay. You felt that. I believe that one more. I believe that. What's your least favorite word?
Moist.
Won't pull on that thread anymore. What turns you on creatively?
New talent, a great script,
Mhm.
a great story. You know, when I'm feeling very inspired to like watch something or read something, even if it's just a poem or something, or I get, you know, you get excited and you realize why you enjoy what you do. Or
For sure. What turns you off?
a bad attitude.
Next one's optional, which is, what is your favorite swear word? And that's only if you don't want to swear on camera, but I'll happily swear for you.
I mean, I actually still can't believe I used the word moist earlier. So I know that's not a swear word, but
Not really a swear word.
But it's still, everyone always thinks of. But I would say, I don't know, the old C word, I think is unbelievably offensive to women, and just so offensive in general. It should not exist.
Did you watch the history of swear words on Netflix with Nicolas Cage?
No, I did not.
It's ridiculous.
It's one of those actors that I just can't. I don't understand. You know, but
I don't think he understands. That's the thing.
I haven't heard of that, mate. I'll check it out.
It's not worth checking out, really. It's just the ridiculousness of it. In each episode, they pick a swear word and they talk about its origins, and then they try and sort of project where it might end up and if it's going to be diluted in meaning. I think that word was one of said words that they had as a whole episode dedicated to it.
Did he do this during lockdown? I feel like this sounds like such a well, just because of COVID, you know?
I don't know if they filmed it then. I'm going to say probably yes, but it did come out during this time. So maybe. It's also Nicolas Cage. So, you know, I think he needs to reap back some of his tax money or whatever the problem is he had to wear. Next question is, what is your favorite sound?
The sea.
What's your least favorite sound?
Oh God, is it really negative to say? I feel like there are quite a few, but like, I don't know. My alarm.
Okay. Oof. Yeah. Have you ever tried not setting your alarm? I stopped setting my alarm and just let myself wake up naturally. And it's interesting that you kind of just do wake up when you should anyway.
Yeah, to be honest, that was a very weird answer for me to give, because I would say I haven't needed to do that. And I do wake up, you know, 7:30ish every morning now anyway. So that was an odd. My least favorite sound. I don't know. I always think of the chalkboard sound when you think of horrible sounds.
Yeah, that'll do it.
I'm like unbearable.
Yeah. Okay, final few questions. What job or profession other than your own or any you have attempted would you most like to try?
Oh, I don't know. I've always been interested in like I don't know, psychology, so like therapy or things like that. I think I'd be interested in, but otherwise, but like I love interior design, so maybe.
Okay. Like two totally different things, the psychology and the interior.
I think the psychology stuff is very much, I think I'd be interested if you asked a lot of casting directors. I was with a good friend who's an agent, and we talked about what a weird career like this industry is, because it is a little bit, and it's very specific. You know, if you were going to change careers, it's quite a tricky. But funny enough, he also was like, I'd be interested. I think I would like retrain as like a psychologist or something, but there is something within that, because I think I like working with people. I'm interested in, I love scripts. I love characters. I love working out why someone would behave in a certain way and watching that play out and how, you know, so I think maybe there's a connection there, whereas the interior design is just, I'd say that's like a hobby, you know.
It's a passion. Sure.
Yeah.
No, it's interesting because counseling, therapy, that kind of community stuff comes up a fair bit with this question to casting, and it makes sense. To be fair, you kind of are doing it as part of the job sometimes anyway with
Yeah.
with,
I think
with what you do.
particularly can be really, you know, they have their clients are going through stuff. You really have to,
Sure.
you know.
Final question is, oh no, sorry, I forgot. The next question is, what job would you never want to do?
Oh, anything to do with sort of tax or
Yeah.
or
Nah, that's it. That's all you got to say, I think. Just
yeah.
tax. Final question now is a bit more ethereal, but it's when it's all said and done, what would you like the story of your life to be? What kind of legacy would you like to leave?
Oh my gosh, Ash, I feel like
Big question.
I helped a lot of people and had a happy life, I guess. And
selfish of you, Claire.
Yeah, what should I have said?
I don't know. No.
I don't know. I would hope that, I don't know, I've had fun and people are like, she was kind and then had a good time and
lived, basically.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Look,
what would you say? I'm interested.
Ooh, what would I say? I feel strongly about helping other people feel empowered, and whether that's implicitly through storytelling or other means, I'm not really too picky, but obviously acting and storytelling feels like the main vessel and vehicle for me. So for some reason, I seem to be drawn to that. I think life's too short to walk through it feeling like you're beholden to some other entity, or that you don't have some kind of ability to make out of it what you want. So, you know, helping people with that, helping myself with that first, and then helping other people with it feels like it's in that wheelhouse for me.
Yeah, good answer. Way better than mine.
I've practiced it daily in front of the mirror for the last, year. That's why. Hopefully it wasn't stale.
Yeah. How many people have asked you that? And I'm like,
no one. You're the first person to ask me back. So I appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah. Putting me on the spot. I'm like, oof.
Right. No one's asked you that back.
No. Look, last, I guess, moment to you really to wrap this up. What would you, well, if people can connect with you, I guess, let them know where, if you're open to that on the socials or anything. Otherwise, what's the takeaway message for you that you'd like to leave people with so we can wrap this up here?
I think, well, just anyone who's going through a hard time, be strong. This has been hard on everyone, and the industry is slowly opening back up, and theatre is going to be coming back soon, and there's going to be more work. Just I feel like this is almost a harder time for everyone than it was in October, even because we've all been doing it for so long. Even though we know the end is in sight, it still now feels like a real slog. So, and yeah, take care of yourselves and remember that, just enjoy if you can, and to just still watch and read, and try not to worry too much. I know, and things will be happening, and joy will be coming back, and more, acting and performances and opportunity and all these things. So keep at it and sit tight, because I can't wait to meet you all soon. It's a big statement, but
fingers crossed soon enough. Amazing. Claire, thank you so much for coming on and chatting. It's been really fun.
It's been nice, Ash. Thank you.